Welcome, Tegan Kline.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You are CEO of Edge and Node, which is a spin-off from the Graph. Am I getting that right?
Co-founder of Edge and Node, I lead business. And yes, the Edge and Node, edges and nodes make up a graph. And so we're kind of the initial team behind the Graph protocol, working to make open data a public good and really a vibrant, decentralized future.
Yeah. No, we were talking before we taped about the Graph. You know, people in crypto have heard of it. Your token prices, you didn't want to talk about price nationality, but your token is up there kind of within the sort of 20 or 30 biggest projects by token price. So the Graph is big, the Graph is important, but a lot of people are hard pressed to understand what it is, what's the protocol, what does it do, what's it most useful for?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Graph is making open data public good. The Graph with that has a work utility token, and so people can actually use that token to earn in the network by providing work. And so the Graph, what the Graph does is really organizes on-chain blockchain data. And so you can, kind of the analogy I like to use is imagine walking into a library and all the books are scattered all across the floor. You want a specific book, you can't find it. That's what Ethereum was like before the Graph came along. And so the Graph organizes those books, puts them on the shelf in alphabetical order. When you walk in, you can find that book. And that's what the Graph is doing for data on blockchains.
That's a great analogy. So it's not an oracle, it's not like a data feed, it's an organizer and curator, and it sort of builds libraries.
Exactly, and it's all on-chain data. So the Graph can index oracle data, but our focus is really on-chain live data.
And what else do you pull in? Like, because we have things like Etherscan and tools like that. What's the relation of the Graph and things like that?
Yeah, so the Graph is pulling data from on-chain in a decentralized way. So there's not a lot of point in putting centralized infrastructure on top of decentralized blockchains. At least I don't believe so. I think it's a short-term solution, and so we're really trying to provide that in a decentralized way in the long term. And so that's why you need that token. There's no company in the middle. The Graph's not taking fees. The Graph's not owning that data. If you compare it to Google, where Google kind of owns that data, there's walled gardens. So the Graph is breaking down those walled gardens and allowing anyone to be able to earn, commensurate to the value that they bring to the protocol.
Yeah, that's interesting. Another life, I was a copyright lawyer, and I was always fascinated by the fights between sort of open data and access and then proprietary closed systems. We've seen that play out in software, of course, like the Oracle-Google fight. I know Google's often no hero in terms of giving away their data, but they have advocated for open source projects, Linux, and Oracle trying to copyright APIs, and just what a disaster that would have been for software. So it sounds like in the blockchain realm, the Graph is sort of fighting a good fight to sort of do what Linux didn't really organize it. But am I on the right track here?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all open source, permissionless, decentralized data, and keeping that access open. And so we saw the DeFi boom, and that's really where we saw this explosive growth in Ethereum recently. And now it's starting to fractionalize on other layer ones and layer twos as they come to fruition. But the Graph was really underpinning that DeFi movement. The Graph with subgraphs, which are open APIs, it allows for any developer to access data and serve it to their users in a transparent way. So it's all open.
And forgive me, I'm not a coder. This doesn't sound like just something you're doing in theory. This sounds like something that most major blockchain developers will be using, even on a daily basis.
Yeah, so they're using it now. So there's over 23,000 developers. They've built over 22,000 subgraphs. And to kind of put it in perspective from early days of the internet, Google 2 years in was doing 13 million queries a day. The Graph is currently serving over 1 billion queries of the spaces queries. So this isn't just for the Graph. The Graph's public good. This is really kind of showing growth in Web3 and Ethereum and other blockchains.
And this might be a funny question, but so you're providing and organizing this data. How do you store it? Do you use sort of like the file points or archives out there at all, or does it all just reside on the own protocol, which is big enough? And I'm sorry if these are dumb questions.
No, yeah. So it's really up to the developer. So some developers store data on IPFS and they use the Graph with Ethereum. Others use Ethereum and they use like Arbitrum and Optimism as other layer twos that the Graph supports. So you can store data on IPFS with the Graph currently, and then hopefully Arbitrum coming soon.
Okay, neat. And so you're protocol neutral then?
Exactly, yeah. So we are supporting a multi-blockchain future and really helping with interoperability at the indexing and query layer.
Neat. And do you see a role for the Graph in the NFT boom at all?
Yeah, so a lot of NFTs are actually using the Graph currently. So Foundation, Zora, Known Origin adoption. Right now, we're working on metadata for IPFS, so it's kind of off-chain data. And so once we have that kind of solution, I think a lot more NFTs will be using the graph.
Neat. Yeah, a bit of a tangent here, but we had Devin, the CEO of OpenSea, on this morning, and I was asking him, like, this is great stuff, but it's just such a flood, and who's going to be there to curate it and organize it and authenticate it? It just sort of seems like the NFT boom is so big. We need someone to kind of like catalog it. Is that sort of a role you do directly? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the graph's providing that in a decentralized way. And so I would say OpenSea has yet to decentralize. We'll see if they do. I hope that they do. But we're seeing a lot of movement in the NFT space, but I kind of compare it to the ICO boom. Like, a lot of people came in, they lost a lot of money. And the sad thing about the NFT boom currently is that if those companies were to go down, their NFT is gone unless it's on like decentralized storage and a decentralized platform.
Yeah, and it's also sort of, I found curious that you've got NFTs on different chains. It's supposed to be the one original unique thing, and maybe that's okay, but I've wondered, how do you prevent counterfeits and multiplication across chains and disappearance if these things go down?
Yeah, it's a great question. We'll definitely see where it all goes, but I'm confident that it will be kind of solved in a decentralized way, and you kind of see these little booms, right? We saw it with DeFi, there was kind of a small bubble, it popped, but a lot of funds came in and started focusing on NFTs, and then there was a bigger rise, and I think that's kind of where we are with the NFTs. It was like a little boom, and then it kind of downplayed, but so many funds put so much money into, and even created NFT-specific funds, so I think we'll see it come back bigger.
Interesting. So just to wrap up, it's neat talking to you. I feel like I'm talking to the future. It's very cool. So what's the next thing after, it's not like DeFi and NFTs are going away, but there sounds like they're consolidating, but what's sort of new out there that's, interesting and exciting to you?
We're seeing a lot of uptick in DAOs, so I think really changing the way we think about work. Now you're removing this middleman, so there's no one at the top kind of collecting all of that profit. It's going peer-to-peer in these ecosystems, and so that's really exciting to me. And we're also seeing a lot of interoperability. So for example, like wrap Bitcoin on Ethereum, and seeing more bridges. So I think we're going to live in a multi-blockchain future, and maybe each chain will have its own specific use case. Like there'll be an NFT chain, for example.
Bridges and DAOs, and we'll have the graph to help us keep track of it also, right?
Exactly.
Tegan Kline, co-founder of The Graph, and CEO of Edge and Node.
Business lead at Edge and Node.
So well there. Okay, thanks so much, Tegan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.